we have to look at it that way at some point in order to reinvent, to recreate, to feel good again, is that we can say, what's possible? What is possible now? And so I was able to do that. And I think if we can just say to ourselves, what good can I make of this? And that's what I'm saying by it as an opportunity. It's sort of an experience, or not experience, but a way to create something that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise.
The Interludes podcast,
a Pure Lighthouse Production.
This episode is brought to you by our brand new website, PureLighthouseMedia.com, home to the ebook, A DJ Saved My Life, where the ABCs of podcasting and the personal memoir come together perfectly. If you want to start your podcast, schedule time with me, or buy merch, which includes the ebook, please visit our fully remodeled website today.
And now, all the way from the south side of Chicago, give it up for your host, Val, the Voice Johnson.
Interludes family, I'm so grateful to introduce Jill Collins. She's someone I met on Clubhouse a couple of years ago, and I've been really enjoying her YouTube channel, Jill Collins Connections. Here's our interview. I'm so grateful to have a phenomenal young woman who is a coach, a creative entrepreneur, and I like to call it a fellow podcaster with a great show, Jill Collins Connections. I've been checking out her podcast over the last year, and I'm telling you, some wonderful, great information has come from her platform. Ladies and gentlemen, Jill Collins, how you doing today?
Hey Val, how you doing? It's good to be here. Excited.
I'm excited to be here too. It's 2025 and I'm grateful for the new year, but most importantly, I'm grateful to be able to have you on, as I've been thinking, oh my goodness, this is someone that I would love to have on my platform. Like, I like to know a little bit more about your background. Let our audience know, who's Jill Collins? Share about your journey and how you transition from facing personal loss and career reinvention and becoming a life coach right now, what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, things, we always say that you got to turn lemons into lemonade. And I think I did that. So, or turn your mess into a message. And I guess I'll start here. Thanks again for having me, Val, and everyone's lovely to be here, and grateful for you all to take the time to listen. It's a little over 8 years ago, my husband of 14 years suddenly passed away. And it really took me back, and I was just aback. And it was as anyone, because it happened in an instant. It wasn't like he was sick or had an ailment. He was very healthy, we thought. And so I had a lot to deal with, in the sense of just, we spent every day together all the time. And so he was retired, and we were living a great life and living between two places. We had two homes, one in St. Petersburg, Florida at the time, and the other one where I am right now, my place in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And so we were traveling back and forth doing things. And he just went out for a run one morning, like he always did. He was very fit, very athletic, and just collapsed on the path and died instantly of a massive heart attack. And so it was just such a sudden thing. I often ask myself, is it easier to lose someone when you know it's going to happen versus when you don't know? And I don't know the answer to that. I think sometimes it's easier when you don't know, but it goes either way, because you can't say goodbye. So for me, it took some time. I had to just, and I'm so understanding of people, women especially, that are midlife. I was 45 when he passed, and it was such a I don't know how to say it. I think I have such an understanding of people and how they grieve, and everyone grieves differently. And I think anyone who judges someone who, for the way that they're grieving, hasn't grieved, because there's just no right way to do it. And so I want anyone who's going through loss right now, whether it be a job interview, maybe a breakup, or job interview, a loss of a job or a career change, or anything, a partner, is to be kind to yourself, because grief is just something that we go through, and we have to go through it. And I think the mistakes that I made, I wouldn't say mistakes, but the way that I coped is I didn't deal with it. And I just stayed incredibly busy. And all my friends jumped in. I came back here within about less than 2 weeks, a trip we'd already planned to come back to Buenos Aires. And my friends just wrapped their arms around me, hugged me, and kept me busy. And I was out partying like a rock star for about 3 months straight, where I could come home drinking every day and passing out in bed at night, and just didn't want to feel the pain. Didn't want to be alone for a second, and sober, I should say. And by the way, I haven't had a drink in 5.5 years now, so I'm very happy about that. But it's been a journey, and so for me, at some point, I just always thought there's got to be something I can do with this. Whenever there's something bad that happens in my life, or something that I've learned, a lesson, or even a good thing, right? If you go to a movie, you always want to share it with your friends. Like, you've got to see this movie. It was awesome. Or when you have a mistake, you want to tell people, what, I got ripped off. I've got to tell you, don't let this happen to you. So there's always something innate in me that I've got to share. And that's why I have this podcast called Jill Collins Connections, because I'm connecting people to other folks and people that I've met that I think are doing incredibly amazing things in this world. And I want you to see it as well and hear from them. And so for me, when this happened, I said, okay, how can I help other people who have gone through or going through what I've gone through? And every time I'd make a mistake, or I'd see something where I could have done differently, or things that I became aware of, I said, okay, how can I share this with people? And it didn't happen immediately, but it did start to show up for me. And to me, I just can't let anything like that happen in vain, like where nothing good comes of it. And so I just said, okay, I need to, maybe I need to start coaching. And actually, I started a matchmaking service first, because I started dating again, and I realized what a mess it was. And I said, okay, using the apps. And so I started a matchmaking service here, and it was quite successful. But I realized quickly that it wasn't so much about giving people matches, they needed coaching on how to be successful in their relationships. So I started getting coaching certifications, and I never dreamed in a million years before Ed passed that I'd be doing this. It wasn't ever on my mind. I thought I'd be maybe in politics, or like I was, or maybe speaking, which I do speak to groups, but to be coaching, I thought, wow, okay. It didn't happen immediately, but I think my influence of being in the Tony Robbins world as a Tony Robbins Platinum partner, and seeing others in that space, really inspired me to do that. And so that's kind of where I got started, and I started to reinvent myself. And that's what was your initial question, is how do you reinvent yourself? And as I say, it's never too late. Never too late. Don't ever say I'm too old. I don't have enough money. I don't know the right people. Whatever your excuse is, it's always time, and you can always start something. And I'm living proof of that. And I've seen so many other people, and I've helped so many other people transform and see something good in their lives, or something that they really always wanted to do, but they were afraid to see, or they didn't think it was possible. And that's my whole passion and mission in life, is what I do today. So I'll leave it there. It was a long intro, but.
Oh, but that's what I was drawn to your story when I found out, number one, about your husband passing, and sorry for your loss, but definitely just kind of that, well, this is how I cope with it, but now I reversed it, and now doing something different. And for myself, I'm thinking, I was kind of giving that advice to Val, make sure that you go through grief recovery. And I was thinking, I don't need that. I don't want to. I didn't do that for my dad. But when I went through that process, and I'm glad I did, because I was in it about 6 to 8 weeks, and then the pandemic happened. So I don't think I would have been prepared for the pandemic if I hadn't started grief recovery, just literally 6 to 8 weeks prior, before everything shut down. So I'm grateful. Wow. Your story of turning loss into strength is so powerful. What advice would you give women who are currently in the season of grief or transition, either from a job or from a relationship, or even a loss of a child?
Oh gosh, yeah. There's nothing I can't imagine. I don't have children of my own, but I can't imagine. I can only imagine how that must be the most difficult thing ever. We always expect to outlive our kids to outlive us. We never expect to outlive our children. And, I think the biggest advice I can give is, again, like I said earlier, is just be kind to yourself. we expect, I can only speak for me, but I've seen it in others that I've worked with, is we expect so much of ourselves. I expected so much of myself, getting back on, dating again, just, okay, I was ready for the next one. All right, where is he? Let's go. I'm ready. Come on. And boy, wasn't I. And I thank God that he didn't answer my prayers and some people that I wanted to be with. And 7 years ago, when I was going like, oh, I thought that person was the greatest thing ever. And today I'm thinking, oh my God, what was I thinking? So, for me, it's we just have to be kind and be patient. And everyone said, oh, give it a year, don't make any major changes. And then you hit that 1 year and you're like, is something magic going to happen? Am I going to feel different? You don't feel different, by the way, after 1 year. And after that 1 year mark, but it's don't rush. And I think it's just allow yourself to feel it, because I went through about maybe a year and a half or 2 years where I went through some family legal issues, and it made it that much more difficult for me to go through the grieving process. And I literally went back probably 2 or 3, even 4 years, even today, even I'm still going through a spiritual journey and creating, how do I say it? Improving myself and working on myself so much in the past 8 years that I would never have done if he'd still be alive. And that's not to say that I'm grateful that he died. I'm not. But I think at some point I could almost see it as an opportunity. And it sounds morbid, and I know you might get some negative responses on here, but I hope people understand what I'm saying when I say it as an opportunity, because we have to look at it that way at some point in order to reinvent, to recreate, to feel good again, is that we can say, what's possible? What is possible now? And so I was able to do that. And I think if we can just say to ourselves, what good can I make of this? And that's what I'm saying by it as an opportunity. It's sort of an experience, or not experience, but a way to create something that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. And part of my program, when I work with women in my 12-week program, is I talk about finding your likes and dislikes. It's sometimes in a relationship in particular, we kind of had this rhythm with our partner. We say, okay, for years, Ed was allergic to shrimp, so we never ate shrimp. And then he died, and I'm like, oh, do I even like shrimp? Maybe I do. I forgot. Maybe, oh, I do like shrimp. I know it's a simple example, but it's rediscovering yourself and seeing what you can do now that maybe you didn't do because you were in a relationship. Do you go out more? Could you go out more? Could you travel more? Maybe your partner didn't like to travel as much. There's just things you can do differently to just sort of like, I use a metaphor of like a set dining room table where the whole thing's ready for like a Thanksgiving dinner or a meal, right? And you have all the crystal, the china, the plates are all set. And all of a sudden, with when you have a loss, it's like someone comes up and takes that tablecloth and they go, and they pull it out and everything's on the floor, but the table's completely bare. And you have an opportunity at some point to go back and to say, okay, I'm going to put the tablecloth back on, and I'm going to pick what I want to put on that table now. Do I still need this? Do I want this in my life? Do I not want it? Is there something that's not here that I want to bring in and go get? And sometimes I think if we wait too long in our grief, things start to show up on our table again for us without us wanting it there. Or we just become so numb and resigned that we allow people to start to build our life back for us. It sounds weird, but sometimes when we're older, our adult children will do that. Oh, mom, you want to live here. You probably should go live in this place. Or, you always wanted to do this. And before you know it, if you're just agreeing to things and people moving around in your life, it could be investing. It's a big one. I teach personal finance and investing is, people making decisions for you. At some point, we have to pull our bootstraps up and say, okay, you know what? The big girl panties, I gotta get up here and I gotta do some stuff. And so for me, it's just that it's creating the life and building it intentionally again, but just taking the time too, and don't make any decisions. True. I agree with that. But trust yourself, trust your intuition, and you'll know when you're ready, and feel it. Allow yourself to feel that grief. Allow yourself to cry. I sure didn't do that for a while. I got stoic. I was like planning, and I'm like, all right, so what do we have to do next? We got to plan this. We got to do that. At the funeral, everybody was walking in, and I'm like, oh, it was like I was at my politician, Val, so nice to have you here. Ed loved you so much. He talked about you often. That's how I was being at the funeral, and the kids are breaking down. Everybody's crying. And I'm like, thank you so much for coming. It's just like, I was like, so it's just, everybody does it different. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit and getting off track, but That's the idea is there. Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey everyone, this is Val the Voice Johnson, and since it's February, Black History Month, I want to take a moment to celebrate a remarkable individual whose contributions have greatly impacted how we move in the streets today. Garrett A. Morgan was an incredible inventor and businessman. Born in 1877, he revolutionized traffic safety with his invention of the three-position traffic signal. This device, which added a warning position between stop and go, was a game changer in reducing accidents on the roads. You know, the first time I heard about Garrett A. Morgan was actually on an episode of A Different World featuring Kadeem Hardison as Dwayne Wayne, where he was teaching that fact to two kids called Crisscross. That episode was such a memorable moment, and it really brought Garrett A. Morgan's contributions to life for me. But Morgan's ingenuity didn't stop there. He also invented the safety hood, a precursor to the modern gas mask, which saved countless of lives during emergencies. He was a trailblazer whose innovations have left a lasting legacy. He was a trailblazer whose inventions left a lasting legacy. Thanks for tuning in for this Black History moment with the Interludes podcast. I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is the Interludes podcast. And now, back to our show. No, but that's a visual. I'm a visual person, so I literally saw you setting up the table, dressing the table, and I think a relative of mine, that's her business. She goes and she sets tables up, and she's event planner. She does some of the most she does some of the most beautiful settings, especially table settings and stuff. I went to her husband's birthday party, and I thought about that. Like, you know, you make these choices. Okay, everything is black and silver, and you make sure that the the napkin is like a butterfly, and you put it in, and you have to make sure you have all of the silverware. And I'm thinking about all of these things were set, and then someone comes and rips this the tablecloth off of that table, and I visually saw that, and I've thought about, for myself, I've never been married, but when my mother passed away, it felt like that, and I had to kind of deal with the collateral damage of her death, with losing my job and then losing my friends and then my church community, because I had to relocate from where I was to where I am now. And I've never heard a visual like that, Jill. That's blowing my mind just in that description. Wow.
But see, the great thing is like I said, we have the ability. You know, sometimes we're just so numb. I'll tell you, and this is something I work with clients in the beginning, is this idea of, if you just getting one win sometimes during the day when this first happens, it's like taking a shower for me was huge. You know, it's like, I took a shower today. Wow. Okay. Winning, you know, or I did a load of laundry, winning, you know, and so it's like, sometimes we can't take on these big tasks that everyone's trying to say, you got to get this done. You got the most stressful things anyone goes through. And you went and you did a move. I mean, that's terrible. It's terrible to have to go through that. And I'm sorry you did. And lost your friends and your community and everything in the process, because that's traumatic. But at the same time, it's like getting that opportunity to say, you know, it's sort of like you get to imagine, again, it's like having a blank canvas. It's once you're able to kind of see a little bit of light, you know, coming through the clouds, it's blank canvas. Like, what do I want my life to look like now?
Right.
If I could do anything, that's how I would start. Is, if you could do anything, what would it be? And then you get to say, okay, well, I've always wanted to be a singer. Okay. Can you sing? Have you taken classes? How do you feel? Have people told you know? And then you explore the idea. It may not be that, but just giving people an opportunity to dream for a minute. And from loss, we think we're trapped, or we think it's too late, or we think, oh, well, I'm stuck in a situation now. You know, we contract. We naturally feel like we have to protect, and we get smaller and we contract. But if we can see that blank table, all this really nice stuff still on the floor, by the way, it's not messed up. There's no food there. It's just plates, and plates aren't broken because this is the metaphor. But, you know, and we go, wow, what do I want to put back? Or do I like any of this stuff? Maybe this was picked for me. Maybe this was my husband's china and I didn't even like it. Let me get some new china, So you get to decide all that. And that's the fun part, is like when we get that light, go, huh. And then you have that or blank canvas. If people are artists, they might like that metaphor better, but it's, what kind of paints do I want to use? What colors? What medium do I want to paint? Do I want to draw? Do I want to sculpt? It's that really just letting yourself get creative.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I thought vision board when you were saying blank canvas.
100%. I love that idea. Yeah. I love that idea. Vision board for that. That was a good idea. I might use that. Yeah, but that's a really good idea. It's that really getting that, just seeing what's possible. Again, because I think we just end up getting really scared and we get small and we just want to hide. Isolate is a big one. People isolate a lot.
Yeah.
And I really encourage people to get in community. I know we have this great community. We met on Clubhouse and that really helped all of us so much in the pandemic years and year or so, whatever it was. And, it's just finding a tribe, and especially during loss. And if you're isolating right now out there and you're maybe addicted to something, I'll confess, I'm addicted sometimes to this phone. I had to delete all my games off my phone because I was playing with my phone. I'd get on there for a minute and I'd get on a call, or I'd start watching a video, and I ADD. So I'm like, oh, I can't just watch a video. I got to play a game at the same time because I got to do two things at once at least, and drink a coffee and maybe I don't know what else. Right. And so I'm doing all this at the same time. And I just said enough. And I found I was isolating myself because it was giving me a dopamine hit that I needed. And I would go for hours and sit when I had other projects to do that I enjoyed doing too. But for some reason, this was stronger. And it gets worse. And so if any of you are isolating, reach out to someone, and if you don't have anyone, but reach out to me, reach out to Val. I know we have great communities we can connect you with. I have a women's group, a community, Midlife women's group that we meet every week on Zoom. And, it's just finding people that will help you, hold you accountable, that will inspire you and help you see what's possible. Because you'll get ideas from other women, other men, people that are like you, that you want to be like, or that you want to emulate, that are where you want to go. And so isolation is a tough one. And it's just making a conscious decision. Like I did that one day and I just said, you know what? The only way to get out of this is to delete all the games. Delete them all. Wow. Don't watch any news anymore. Stop doing YouTube news, scrolling the election. Stop. and I'm more productive. And I'll tell you, I watched a video yesterday and I repeated it. It was 2 hours and I watched it twice. And this is what I did with my day yesterday. And it was I think it was Diary of a CEO, and he had this woman on about the addiction and prefrontal cortex. The latest video. It's so good.
Podcast. I love that podcast.
It's really good. And she talked about the whole thing about dopamine and how addictions and how she said, once you stop something, she said, it will feel like it's the craving and the anxiety of wanting to pick it back up. Like if it's shopping, if it's getting on anything you're doing repeatedly that is taking over, it may not impact anybody else. It may not be anything like a drug, like that we recognize as drugs, but it's something like that. And it's taking over. And she said, it will feel like it's worse the first 2 days. Like it's going to always be a craving. You're going to feel the anxiety of wanting to do it again or pick it back up. But she said, if you give it 2 weeks and then a month is when it completely clears out. And she said, surprisingly, because she was addicted to romance novels. And she said, after that, I felt more alive and more present and more excited about what I was working on than I did before I was even doing that. So you've got to give that time. But sometimes we need someone to help us hold our hand along the process, or someone that we can call and say, hey, I didn't do this today. Can I check in with you and let you know? Or if I'm feeling like it, I need whatever works for you. Find your little hack that's going to work for you. That'll help you get through that. Anyway, that was my little on isolation, because I think it's such a big thing we're dealing with right now, especially in midlife.
Yeah, very much so. Now you've mentioned so much. I want to make sure that I go back to what I heard, and then of course, definitely how we met. We met through a platform called the House of Creativity, and Delano and Monique Lisa, they created this platform. How did you know them? I know you know them before the platform. What's the connection?
I did not know them before the
Did not?
platform. Nope.
Wow.
I
Okay.
I
Who
I met
told you about it?
Delano. Well,
Yeah.
I got on Clubhouse through my Tony Robbins Platinum Partner community.
Mhm.
There were a couple of them that got on Clubhouse, and I remember it was like New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and I opened Facebook in 2021,
Mhm.
and someone in Facebook in the group said, I have an invite I can give away to Clubhouse. First one who responds gets it. And I'm like, I don't even know what Clubhouse was. I'm like, I'll take it, you know. And then he goes, it's yours. And I'm like, great. So then I go into Clubhouse, load it up. And by the time I got in there, I already was accepted. Someone I didn't even know. Remember back in the day where it said who invited you or who your sponsor was or something?
Right,
Somebody
right.
had already done it for me. And I to this day don't know who that person was. So I didn't need that one. But I got in on New Year's Day. And ironically, Monique Lisa's Johnson's, her first day was the same day. We didn't know each other then. So one of the platinum partners was like doing these rooms, Scott Martin, talking about groundswell in marketing. He's amazing. He's one of the best. I've interviewed him on my podcast and on YouTube. And he talks about branding and everything. And he goes, hey, I'm doing this room. Come join us. And so he used to mod me, and I learned about modding. And then I met a guy named Chris Delaney there. And Chris and Brendan Kumarasamy, I also interviewed him, and some other people were doing this evening room every night. And because there weren't many rooms there weren't clubs then, there were only rooms. They were so crowded. And so Scott was in there. Somehow I got to know some of them, and they started bringing me up, and Delano would be on those stages. And so I got to know Delano a little bit because I was modding at the same time. And I don't know, then I heard Delano was doing a morning room. I started jumping in his room with Monique, the House of Creativity. And that's how it all started. That's how I met Delano. And again,
Wow.
you have to, for those who don't know what Clubhouse is, it's an audio only app. So you're looking at just like postage stamps. It's like a live podcast, but in real time. And I don't know these people. I just see a little postage stamp, picture of the person.
Mhm.
And so that's how we got to know each other as well.
You've had some wonderful, wonderful guests on Jill Collins Connections. Recently, you spoke with Barry Shelby. I think he's a relationship expert on your show, 5 Hidden Secrets to Heal Grief and Get Your Life Back. And he states very plainly, don't give up on everything. You even said that it's not too late, especially when it comes to personal or romantic relationships. What advice would you give the mature single like myself and someone who's never been married, who wants to start back dating and might be afraid to do so?
What advice would I give for someone who wants to get back on date? I would say first you have to love yourself. You have to really be confident and love yourself, and just know your value and your worth. Because when we go out there, if we're on this, we're feeling desperate and we feel like like there's scarcity, there's not a lot of opportunity out there, we're going to settle. And to me, the number one thing is don't ever settle. In my life, as I said, I started to say this, and this is a good time to bring it up, is for me, as I was dating over the past 7 or 8 years now, is every time I was dating someone, and I've dated a lot, because I'm research, but let's call it research and life lessons. But but it's like every time I just said, you know what, he's not quite right. It's just something, not it. And it's like I just knew, Jill, if you can just wait a little longer. I knew that if I kept growing and I kept getting, like, developing myself and learning to love myself even more, that as I grow and expand, the quality of candidates that I attract are better. Does that make sense? Because if we're
sense.
broken and if we are in scarcity and we're afraid and we are feeling low about ourselves, we're going to attract that. And it's nothing mystical or magical or whatever. It is just truth. And like I said in the beginning, is when I was dating my first year or two in, I was attracting low quality. I wouldn't say low quality, but people that were not available emotionally.
Right.
And it, because I wasn't. And I thought, oh, I just want a guy who's just, who's successful and secure in himself, fit, healthy, going to be loving yeah, that's what I say. But my big thing is, who do I need to be to attract that? And that's where the real work is as soon as I am like the person that I imagine. I always say, make a list. I have a program called Dating Like a Pro that I've worked on. I've done group coaching with this, and I have the program you can buy on its own. But you can work with me on it as well. But it's the idea of make that list of what you want, and then circle the ones that are really important to you, that the ones that deal breaker, that you have to have, the musts, right? Because sometimes you say brown hair. Well, you know what? Okay, would you be okay if they had light brown hair or blonde hair? You want to kind of get serious about which ones are non-negotiables for you. Mm-hmm. And then you go in and you say, okay, I'm not going to waver on those few. And what we start to do, though, is that if the last part of that, after we have the list and we start looking, is who do I need to be? What's on this person's list that they're looking for? Am I unhealthy? Am I staying out late? And if I don't want a drinker and I want someone who's spiritually aligned, or they're, emotionally high EQ, am I out partying every night and drinking and isolating and feeling sorry for myself and in victim mindset? Who am I being? I'm not going to find that person's not going to want to be with me. They're not going to even walk up to me, because they're going to feel that. They're going to sense it. And so we need to work on ourselves. And I'm not saying don't date. I'm saying it's always great, because even when I think I'm like ready and now I've worked on myself so much this year, and then you get into a relationship and it's like you're in the live lab. It's like in real time. And even though you think you've conquered this one issue, it's like, dang, it's like, there it is again. It's something I need to work on. And you're always working on yourself with your partner and on your own when you're with someone in relationship, which I'm in one now, but it's this really, who do I need to be? That's the secret sauce to this whole thing, is who do I need to be to attract this awesome person that I've figured out in my head that I think is out there that I want.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And lastly, where can our audience here at Interludes can connect with you and learn more about your coaching, podcast, and midlife mastery community that you talked about a little bit earlier?
Yeah, sure. You can go to my Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all of them. And it's all at I am Jill Collins, all of them. And also I have a website. We're working on editing it right now to get some more things there. But the best way is send me a DM on Instagram. I'm on Instagram mostly, more than any other platform. And then we have a website, one that I'm also updating. That's JillLifeCoach.com. that we're going to be using for my coaching services. But in my podcast, most importantly, too, is YouTube, and it's Jill Collins Connection. So you can find me there and all the great interviews we've talked about. I want to get you on there, Val, and hear your story, too, sometime.
That would be phenomenal. And like I said, it's a real honor to have you here with the Interludes podcast, because, like I said, to me, in my mind, we're all creative entrepreneurs, and to take our stories and to make it into a way to help others is a beautiful journey. And so thank you so much for sharing yours with us.
My pleasure. As
Jill Collins, ladies and gentlemen. Woohoo!
Thank you, everyone.
I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is the Interludes podcast. The Interludes podcast.
Original concept by Valerie Johnson.
Sports segments for Talk on Tuesdays, produced by Coach Tony Thompson.
Original intro and outro music produced by Kendall Nesbitt.
The Interludes podcast, a Pure Lighthouse production. This episode is brought to you by our new website, PureLighthouseMedia.com, home to the book, A DJ Saved My Life, where the ABCs of podcasting and the personal memoir come together perfectly. If you are interested in starting your podcast, schedule time with me, or support the platform by buying merch, which also includes the book, by visiting PureLighthouseMedia.com today.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel or join Interludes Facebook group, visit the website linktree/Pure Light Media. That's linktr.ee/Pure Light Media.